You may not be that familiar with Polestar, but it was a very successful racing team that tuned and raced Volvo cars. And eventually, Volvo decided to buy the team, just like how Mercedes bought AMG and started integrating them into their model lineup. Now, if you want to have the sportiest, most performance-oriented version of a Volvo, it's going to have a Polestar badge. But recently, Polestar has been spun off into its own brand. They now have the Polestar 1 Coupe, their first ever model, and the Polestar 2, their follow-up, which is an electric sedan rivaling the Tesla Model 3. So where does that leave Volvo? You can still get a Volvo with a Polestar badge, but they're now labeled as Polestar Engineered. So they have engineering from the Performance Polestar brand. Now you can get the Engineered by Polestar badge on a variety of Volvo models, including the S60 sedan and V60 wagon, but we have it here on the XC60 crossover. I'm going to show you what the XC60 Polestar Engineered is all about. So the XC60 has always been one of the most attractive vehicles in the compact luxury segment, and I think the Polestar Engineered version just looks even better. We still have our Thor's Hammer LED headlights. Now everything is blacked out on the Polestar Engineered. We have a black grille here. This is our little white Polestar badge to let us know that we have a Polestar Engineered model. Now coming around the side, you get 21-inch forged wheels as standard, but we have the optional 22-inch Y-spoke wheels. Now the 22s are going to affect the ride a little bit, and we have 6-piston brake calipers up front that are painted gold. So yeah, Volvo's Polestar color, their signature color is gold. We're going to see that on the inside a little bit too. We've got gold brake calipers here as well. Coming around the back, everything looks pretty much the same as what you get on a normal XC60. Now we do have sort of a black diffuser here with black exhaust tips here. And just like in the front, we've got our white Polestar badge denoting that this is a Polestar Engineered model. Now it doesn't really shine out that much on a white car like this, but if you get another color, this white badge is going to stick out greatly. So now that we've checked out what makes an XC60 Polestar Engineered special on the outside, let's see what they've done here on the interior. And I don't want to spend too much time on it because I'll be honest, this isn't that much different from a regular XC60. So if you want to see more about what a Volvo interior is like to live with, check out some of my other Volvo videos. I have ones on the S60, the XC90, and the V60 wagon, but I will tell you a little bit. We've got Volvo's Sensus infotainment system here. I really like it. Not everybody is a big fan of it. It's this vertically integrated touchscreen. It works very much like a smartphone where you have kind of your menu, you have apps here. You can come over here to control. We have our charge mode, so if you want to charge up your battery, because this is a plug-in hybrid and you don't have the ability to charge, you can charge, or you can press hold and it'll hold the amount of battery you have as well. You have all of your safety information here. I have on this button here, I can activate Pilot Assist, which is Volvo's self-driving technology. I'm not going to focus too much on that on this review because this is the performance Volvo, but it works just as well here as it does in all other Volvos, where it does the steering for you just a little bit with your hands on the wheel, and I think it works better than Tesla's, in my opinion. I have driven them both. You've got a home button here, sort of like you did on an iPhone. Just one button gets you right back to your home menu. You have a shifter design that is like all electric on these hybrids. If you get either a T5 or a T6 Volvo, you have a normal shifter, but here you have kind of like a digital one. To get it into reverse is kind of a pain. You have to bump it forward. That puts you in neutral, and then you have to bump it forward again. That gets you into reverse, where you have a very nice clear camera and a very nice clear 360 camera, although I'm not sure why it doesn't default to the 360 camera. I find that kind of annoying. And now to get back into drive, I have to pull it back to neutral, back to drive again. It's just a little annoying. I wish you could kind of pull to neutral and then one more time all in one motion to get to drive, and then P for park. You also have a B mode for brake regen that you can control with these really cool like leather coated paddle shifters. We do have sort of like an aluminum trim here. That's different on the Polestar Engineered models. Let's go ahead and get this off the screen. We have our drive mode selector that is similar to what we get on all other Volvos, but we have different modes here than what we do on some other Volvos. We have constant all-wheel drive, which will lock the rear axle on to make it all-wheel drive. You have pure, which is going to rely heavily on the electric motor to basically make this car a full EV. You can go full speed with that. Hybrid is going to be what you're going to drive around most of the time in. Polestar Engineered is going to be your sport mode, and then you have an off-road mode that I'm sure pretty much nobody is ever going to use. The steering wheel is a bit sportier than what you'd get in a normal non-Polestar Volvo, and the seats are much more aggressive as well. They're leather with like a little bit of cloth here, which is nice. I really like the cloth inserts. You get cloth inserts here on the door as well. These seats are super comfortable. It doesn't, now they don't have ventilation and they don't have massage like an Inscription Volvo, but whether Volvo is doing a comfy seat or a sport seat, they're incredibly comfortably. These are some of the best sport seats I've sat in. They're very nicely bolstered, and you get gold seat belts. How cool is that? Now these match the brake calipers that we saw on the outside, which I think is really cool. But like, come on, these are absolutely awesome. And as part of the Polestar Engineered, because this is the highest, most expensive XC60 you can get, you do get Volvo's Bowers & Wilkins stereo, which I think is the best stereo in any car I've tested, bar none. Now back here we've got 38 inches of legroom, which is pretty good for the segment. We've got our air vents here on the pillar, which is interesting instead of having them here in the center console. Now the one thing we do not have back here is any USB. We do have our normal 12-volt outlet to charge up devices, but no USBs. That's a little bit disappointing, but these seats are incredibly comfortable for a compact SUV like this. Now back here with our power opening tailgate, it opens up to 21.6 cubic feet of space, which is pretty good for the segment. Definitely not class leading by any respects though. We do have some nice storage here. We have storage here on the side with this little cargo net. We also have hooks for our grocery bags, which is nice. Now you can fold the rear seats down. Obviously that opens it up to 63.6 cubic feet of space, which is again good. Not the best in the segment, but very good nonetheless. Now the only thing that I wish Volvo would have done is put some releases for the seats back here in the trunk so I could pull those. If I want to drop those seats back, I do have to open up the rear doors to get back there to drop down the rear seats. All right, so let's get the XC60 Polestar Engineered out on the road. Now this is the highest performing version of the XC60 that you can get. We have Volvo's T8 drivetrain. That's their twin-engined e-hybrid plug-in hybrid drivetrain. Now there is a lot to dissect there. Up in front of the car, we have a 2.0 liter twin charged engine. So that is a supercharger and a turbocharger, both driving the front wheels only using an 8-speed automatic transmission. And Volvo says the engine on its own delivers 328 horsepower. Now that's mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, but between that, there is an electric motor with a separate electric motor on the rear axle driving the rear wheels. So the front wheels and the rear wheels are not actually connected. They can do different things, which is really cool. The electric motor adds an additional 87 horsepower to the mix. So Volvo says the total combined output is going to be 415 horsepower and 494 pound-feet of torque. That second number is the real good, juicy number. It means when you go to step on it in this car, you have instant response, and that's a lot due to the electric torque. Now, the 8-speed automatic in this mix really doesn't make like a whole lot of feel. It almost feels like there is no transmission at all, almost kind of like a CVT. You do not feel shifts even when you're shifting manually with the paddles, and that's because there is that electric motor between the engine and the gearbox smoothing things out. Now you'll get from 0 to 60 in about 4.8 seconds, which is not the best in this category by far. You're going to go quicker in things like the BMW X3M and the Mercedes GLC63. Those things have an inline 6 turbo and a V8 respectively. But the advantage that you do get in the Polestar is the fuel economy. You're going to average about 27 mpg. Good luck doing that in a V8 Mercedes AMG car. And you're going to get about 20 miles of electric range on this guy, which is awesome, which means I can drive completely silently. You can change the drive modes independently, so I can pull away from the stop here just using electricity alone, just like a normal T8 Volvo. I have a very separate gauge here that lets me know when I'm using electricity versus if I really plant my foot in the throttle, it will kick in the gasoline engine. Now, a Polestar engineered car is a lot stiffer than a regular XC60. The XC60 is one of the most comfortable vehicles in the compact luxury SUV class, but the Polestar one definitely goes a little bit stiffer. Now, it's nowhere near as stiff as the X3M or the GLC63. Those cars are abysmally uncomfortable. So this does ride really well, but it does have Öhlins dampers. That's a really nice, really expensive type of suspension that you usually see on like race cars and things, but Volvo put it on a crossover, and it's completely unlike any adjustable suspension you've probably ever seen on a production luxury car. And to show you why, I need to pull over for a second. Now that we've pulled over, let's check out what I was on about with these dampers. They're Öhlins, that's how you pronounce that, and it says Polestar Engineered, and you get this interesting little diagram on it. It's these little gold things here. Now, you might want to use gloves or a towel. If you've been driving this car for a long time, these ones under the hood get very hot. So basically what you have to do is pull up on these and you manually adjust the stiffness of the suspension. So if you turn them all the way clockwise, that's going to be their stiffest setting. All the way counterclockwise is their softest setting, and there are 22 settings on each corner that you can do for this car, and there are ones in the rear too. Now, we were able to access those. You have to pull off a little rubber thing, stick your hand in there, and get a little bit dirty. I can't imagine that any Volvo XC60 owner is ever going to want to do this. This is the type of things you usually see on like a Miata track car. I find it incredibly strange that Volvo decided to do this on a luxury performance crossover instead of making it adjustable using a button on the screen. So now that we've checked out those Öhlins dampers, I haven't really played around with them too much because I'm worried about either making this car too stiff or too soft or whatever. I really can't imagine that any owners are going to play around too much with that. But what I will say is that as the car was sent to me, it doesn't feel stiffer than the BMWs or the AMGs of the world. So again, you're not going to feel too uncomfortable even if you opt for this Polestar engineered model. So now let's talk about the rest of the driving experience, because Volvos are not inherently sporty, or at least not the ones I've been sent, because I've been sent Inscriptions and Momentums. This is the first Polestar engineered one I've driven. Now the steering is still incredibly light. Volvo has very light steering. They don't like to do thick, heavy steering like BMW does. Now you can make it a little bit heavier here. I have a Polestar engineered mode here in the drive mode selector. I showed you that while we were stopped. Now I'm going to put it in that mode so I have full power. I've got the full tachometer now instead of the, charge gauge. So let's see how quickly this car gets off the line. Remember, 4.8 seconds to 60 miles an hour. Ooh, there we go. Good launch. Very smooth. Really quick. Woohoo! Wow, yeah, that's a big surge of power. Now this thing gets off the line really, really interestingly, because you feel that engine is only delivering power to the front wheels, so you get a little bit of almost like a front wheel drive launch, but then that electric motor in the rear kicks in and delivers all the grip you need, so it really just gets off the line in a hurry. So again, it doesn't throw you back in your seat or anything crazy like that, but it's the responsiveness that you really notice. Any gear, any speed, this car just responds. There it is. Woo! instantly. It's just so quick. The drivetrain in this is so responsive. So I really love how the drivetrain responds to your throttle inputs no matter where you're driving. And in this Polestar Engineered mode, the steering weights up, but it still doesn't feel too heavy. I love the steering in this car because it is accurate like a European car, but it's almost like light like a Japanese car. Now, on center, this has some of the best steering I've felt in a crossover. It's definitely more direct than a regular non-Polestar Volvo. I can move the car with just the very gentlest of steering inputs. What I will say is when you get it further off center in like a tighter turn, the feel goes away a little bit. It's much better on center than it is in deeper turns, but I'm willing to live with that. I think the steering is an overall win because I have not driven a Volvo recently that has this type of dynamicism, and I really feel a major difference between this Polestar Engineered model and a normal Volvo. And one of the complaints I heard when these hybrid models first started coming out, even the Polestar Engineered ones, that the brake pedal feel was weird. And that's a symptom of a lot of hybrids, especially plug-in hybrid ones that have brake regen. But Volvo has completely ironed that out. I've got 6 piston brakes up front, which is like overkill on this type of vehicle. They really do a great job of bringing this vehicle down to a stop in a hurry. I'm very impressed with this car. It doesn't feel like an X3M or a GLC 63 competitor to me. Those cars are just too stiff, too hard edge, and too annoying to live with. What I think this more directly competes with is the Audi SQ5, which is much cheaper to start, but if you look at any well-optioned SQ5s, it's gonna be very similar to what you're paying for a XC60 Polestar Engineered, and from where I'm sitting, I don't know why you would get the Audi. Pricing for the 2020 Volvo XC60 engineered by Polestar starts at $69,500. We've got 22-inch wheels and the white paint and destination on ours, bringing the total price to $73,500. Now you have to decide whether or not the Polestar engineered stuff, the performance, the rarity, the Öhlins dampers, the cool brakes, all of that stuff is worth it to you, because you're gonna pay about $8,000 more for this than a regular XC60 with the T8 hybrid drivetrain, which produces 400 horsepower. Now, I think the rarity of this car is really cool. You're not gonna see too many other Polestar engineered models out on the road, and it is even rarer than things like the X3M and GLC 63, and it is far more comfortable than those vehicles. And as I mentioned, an Audi SQ5 is less expensive on the base end, but if you option up one of those to similar equipment as the XC60, this is going to be about the same price. Now, you can get a regular XC60 starting at about $40,000, so if you don't need any of the performance aspect of this car, I still think the XC60 is a great SUV, but the Polestar engineered one is a very unique car that I would at least consider if I had the money. We really hope you've enjoyed this review of the 2020 Volvo XC60 Polestar Engineered. For more information on this car, check the link in the description below to be taken to carbuzz.com. And as always, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. I'll see you next time.